Hey, what's up guys? Alex here with a new video, and today we're going to be talking about the new Sigma 50mm f1.4 for Sony E and Leica L mount. So the new Sigma 50mm f1.4 DGDN art lens is Sigma's latest prime lens in their lineup, designed for mirrorless cameras, and they are really kind of finishing up their set. They now have a 20mm, 24, 35, 50, 85mm prime lens, and they've done all this in the last 2 years, and all these lenses have been redesigned for their mirrorless system. It's just incredible how fast they're moving and the type of quality they're putting out. This is another banger, and let's talk about it. But like I do with all my videos, I gotta say this, Sigma loaned me a pre-production copy of this lens, but they did not tell me to say anything or have any influence on this video. With that said, this is gonna be my first impressions because I've only had the lens for 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, I don't have it with me anymore. I had to send it back, so I don't even have the lens with me right now. I shot about 3 sessions with the lens and a lot of personal work with it, and I have my thoughts. With that said, let's kick things off. So I'm going to cover 3 things in this video. I'm going to cover build quality and ergonomics, autofocus, and image quality. Throughout the video, I will also be putting up images I've taken with this lens so you can see the type of quality you're going to expect from it. Let's get to build quality. So Sigma is really staying true to their new design, which means they're including an aperture ring with all their lenses. They're including an autofocus hold button with all their prime lenses, an aperture click switch, which means if you're doing video, you can de-click the aperture ring so you don't make any sound. And I think this is the first lens also to include an aperture lock switch on the right-hand side of the lens. This is really handy because sometimes the aperture ring can move in your bag or if you bump it. Actually, this lens you really can't move it if you bump it, but in the bag it might be able to move. But with the aperture lock switch, you can just put the aperture ring in auto, lock it, and that ring isn't going to go anywhere. I personally like that because I like putting the ring in auto and switching the aperture with the scroll wheel in my camera. Other than that, just like all Sigma prime lenses, I should say all Sigma art prime lenses, this lens is dust and splash resistant, so it's not fully weather sealed, but that is to be expected at this price point. You're gonna notice this lens looks a little on the longer side. As a matter of fact, it's actually a tad bit longer than the Sony 51.2 G Master, but it is lighter. So it is a longer lens, but it's not as heavy as the 1.2 on the Sony side. Overall though, I've owned a 35 1.4 and 85 1.4, and the new design that Sigma's rolling with is really great. The build quality is great, and the only complaint I really have is just it's a little bit on the longer side. Again, I'm nitpicking here because this lens also does retail for $849, and when you make a lens this good and that affordable, there's going to be compromises. When you compare it to the Sony 50mm 1.2, which costs $2,000, you can actually purchase 2 of these lenses for the price of that one. And there's got to be, areas where Sigma's going to cut costs. So they're not cutting costs here in the optical quality, which we'll talk about here in a second, or the build quality, because the build quality is great. I think where they have to maybe cut back a little bit is in the size department, because I'm sure making it smaller would probably cost more money. But like I said, it's still a light lens, so I want to just point that out. Moving on to autofocus, Sigma actually included a new autofocusing motor on this lens. They call it the HLA, or the High Response Linear Actuator. We're going to call it HLA, it's a lot simpler. But essentially, Sigma is saying this is their fastest focusing lens yet. Now, I will say, this lens felt like a native lens on the Sony a7R5. I never missed focus, it was never slow, and you can never hear the motors, which means I have zero complaints. I didn't use this lens for too much video, I did use it for some. I never heard the autofocusing motor, and like I said, I never missed focus. When you combine these new lenses with the new technology in the Sony a7R5, I mean, it is just chef's kiss. It's almost automatic, and the results are absolutely incredible. This lens feels like a native lens, and overall, very impressed by the autofocusing speeds and the fact that you don't hear a single motor, so kudos to Sigma there. Moving on to image quality. Here's where this lens shines. And I've said this before, so these new Sigma lenses designed for mirrorless cameras are absolutely incredible. Their image quality is 99% there compared to a Sony G Master. And the Sony G Master in this situation cost $2,000. So we're looking at an $849 lens, giving you 99% of the quality to a $2,000 lens. I mean, I don't know how Sigma's doing it, but again, another banger here. I actually do have a comparison between this lens and the Sony G Master coming up later this week. So if you want to check that out, please subscribe. But moving on, the image quality here is just great. I did shoot sessions pointing the lens directly at the sun. The lens does not really flare too much and really maintains contrast throughout the entire scene. And I didn't really notice any imperfections. Looking at the background blur, it was smooth and pleasing. And the only real kind of thing I noticed shooting at 1.4 in certain situations, and I mean extreme situations, you have a slight hint of purple fringing. You'll see in my comparison with the Sony how they differ, but I'm talking about incredibly small purple fringing to the point where unless you're zooming in 3x on the Sony a7R5, you might not even notice it. To say it again, we have a banger lens here with the new 50 1.4. And this lens really kind of fits the market perfectly right now because up to this point with Sony, you have the 55 1.8, which I think retails for $800. And then you have the G Master 1.2 at $2,000. So this lens kind of slides right in the middle, gives you a new 1.4 option at $849, which is a great affordable option in the middle. But where I think this lens even has a better value is with the L mount. When you look at the L mount with Leica, Panasonic, the Panasonic 50 1.4 is also in the $2,000 range. The Leica 50 1.4 Summilux is in the $5,000+ range. So having this option in the L mount at $849 is incredible. And I'm sure paired with a new Panasonic S2 and their new autofocusing, it's just going to deliver incredible results. I really can't wait to use this lens with a Leica SL because the value you're going to get there is just going to be awesome. Again, these are my first impressions. I only used this lens for 2 weeks. You've been seeing the images. What do you guys think? Please subscribe because later this week I'll be comparing it to the Sony 51.2 G Master and you're going to see how close these two lenses are. But as always guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like. If you have any questions or you want to see anything, please comment down below. I do gotta say, I usually include sample images for you to download and play with yourself because the lens I used was an early production copy running beta firmware. I'm not gonna do that this time, but we'll do plenty of pixel peeping on my next video so you'll be able to see all the little details. But guys, again, thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.